Okay, brothers, if I can have your attention, if I can ask brothers to sit themselves down. Okay, a couple of points before we start. We haven't given the timetable out or put it on the wall for everyone to see because we don't like to follow a rigid timetable. Timetable here, what we've found from experience, is subject to change. This is edge of your seat type of action here. You know, we sometimes, change things at the last minute just to keep you guys alert. So, inshallah, you will be getting some rest time soon. As I've said to you at the beginning, when we welcomed you, that we're here to turn your normal timetable routine upside down. This is a very exceptional weekend, so don't get too stressed. Oh, when am I going to go to bed and get my beauty sleep, right? So inshallah, we want to give you a good beauty sleep, but in the hereafter. So we want to give you some good tips for spiritual ascension which will allow you to have very, very good rest, inshallah. What I want to do now is spend a short while now. We are going to have a tea break soon, maybe in about 15 minutes. But I want to spend this time just to recapping what you've learned so far. Most importantly, it's an opportunity for the new brothers to ask any questions, anything that they do not understand. This topic that Brother Siraj just covered now had a lot of information. And I appreciate there's going to be things that people are not sure about or they just need clarification on. Most importantly, when you go away from here after this weekend, we are going to keep constantly throughout the course, going to be constantly talking about the 5 fundamental amals, the 5 fundamental things that you need to be doing as part of your journey on a daily basis to achieve the closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We mentioned that a short while ago, and I want to ask the audience again as to who remembers what was just said. The 5 fundamental amals. When I say amal, the thing that... You want this way? Okay. 5... The 5 fundamental amals that I would like somebody to tell me, even if one person can't remember all of them. Can somebody start me off, please? What are those 5 fundamental amals that we have been told to do on a daily basis to achieve the pleasure and closeness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Who wants to start me off? Zikr. What's the specific zikr? Okay, please wait for the mic to come. If anybody wants to answer a question, the reason why we want the mic in your hands is so the people listening online can hear what you say. So you said zikr. Is there any specific zikr?
La ilaha illallah.
MashaAllah, that's right. Any specific amount of time?
5 to 15 minutes. Start off with 5.
That's right, yeah. MashaAllah, good answer. And as you progress, you can increase that. But sometimes the reason why we say start with 5 and then gradually increase, because if you're a brand new person, we say to him, go and do this zikr for half an hour. Whilst you're sitting in this environment in the masjid, it's going to seem very easy. Yeah, when I go back home, oh yeah, of course, forget half an hour, I'll be sitting for an hour doing this zikr at home. But I'll tell you what, it's going to be hard. It gets very difficult because the shaitan is going to create obstacles for you. The nafs is not going to be used to it. It's going to be screaming, crying, and it will put all sorts of obstacles in front of you to stop you from doing this zikr. So if you just say, I'll just start with 5 minutes, it becomes easier for the mind to accept that, rather than if you have to find that 1 hour. Whilst we're sitting here today in this environment, it will seem easy that we're going to go back and we're going to find this 1 hour to do our amals. But I can assure you that there's going to be some challenges ahead and some of the experienced brothers can relate to that, no doubt. Okay, that was one. Zikr of La ilaha illallah. Next, can you raise your hand if you know the answer, please? Brother here at the front.
Purification of the 7 bodily organs.
Yes, but there's one specific one we want you to start with.
The tongue.
MashaAllah, yeah. So starting with the tongue. And again, as Ustad Siraj mentioned, there's about 15 to 16 sins just relating to the tongue. Before I looked at this course, if somebody asked me how many sins there are relating to the tongue, I would have probably struggled to even think about 3, 4. But until somebody doesn't break it down to you, say, look, 15, 16 sins, you will not know that there's so much sins that we commit with our tongue. And the purpose is to follow that chart every single day. Look at your performance at the end of the day, how you've performed today. Did I commit any of these sins? This backbiting, slander, lying, singing, disclosing secrets, whatever. If there is nothing that you have breached, tick, mashallah, you've done well. You've had a good day. Day 2, success. Day 3, day 4, day 5. Even if you get to the 29th day and you commit a sin, then what you do, you go back to day 1 and start that journey again for 30 days. That is the one surefire, foolproof method of being able to overcome the sins of the tongue and being able to master that particular bodily organ. And then inshallah later on you move on to the others. But the most fundamental aspect when starting this journey is start with the tongue. Okay, so we've got 2. We've got zikr, la ilaha illallah zikr. We've got the tongue as a bodily organ to control. What's the third item? Sorry, somebody? Brother Qasim? Oh, sorry, the brother at the back.
Your private?
No, that's a bodily organ. Yeah, but the 5 fundamental amals that you have to do to start this journey every day. Yes, your private parts is a bodily organ which you must and you have to purify amongst all the 7. But we want to know the 5 fundamental to start this journey.
There's one prayer sheet.
Yes, your prayer sheet. Again, once you look at the sheets, the 30-day sheets, they're quite self-explanatory. So this one is to do with your prayers. So each time you pray, in every prostration, you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is with me, Allah is watching me, Allah is hearing me. So as soon as you do Allahu Akbar, in every prostration, when you're in ruku, you're standing in qiyam, you stand, then you go into sujood, you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with me, watching me, hearing me every time. Because the problem is, my brothers, is that majority of us, when we stand on that prayer mat, all the distractions of the dunya and the thoughts and the conversations and the problems enter our mind when we stand on that prayer mat. Everything apart from the remembrance and the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Majority of people are heedless of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even on the prayer mat in the masjid, because our minds are so cluttered, so full of rubbish, that even when we're praying, when we're supposed to be in the presence of the Creator, we are not, because we're distracted with so many things. So this amal, so just for the brother mentioned the prayer sheet. I'm just breaking it down for you again. What do we mean by this prayer sheet amal? It's basically getting into the presence, you're standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You make sure your mind and heart is turned towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And initially, you're going to have to remind yourself constantly by being conscious, Allah is with me, Allah is watching me, Allah is hearing me. There'll come a time after a certain period where it'll become automatic, where you will automatically be thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't need to make that strong conscious effort. So we're on 3 now. So I'll start from the scratch again. It's La ilaha illallah zikr. It's the prayer sheet and the tongue sheet. So the 4th, who's going to tell me what the 4th item is? Brother, did you have an answer? Wait for the mic.
Sincerity sheet.
Yeah, sincerity sheet. So would you be able to explain what we mean by the sincerity sheet?
It's more respect-wise and I can't remember what it is.
Okay. Basically, it's checking your sincerity, your level of ikhlas. You know, when you do things, are you doing it purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or are you doing it for the show of people? Yeah, for argument's sake, I don't know, if let's say if there was a collection being done here for the masjid, and really my intention was to put £1 in the bucket, but I see everybody's looking, and I take the £20 out of my pocket and I just wave it up in the air, say, brother, yeah, bring the bucket here, £20. Really, I'm not doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm doing it for people. So that shows my lack of sincerity. So every single action that we do, whether I help my brother in need or I don't help him, is it for the sake and pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or is it to show off, or is it for my own benefit? I mean, if this brother asks me for my help, am I going to help him purely because for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or am I going to think, what can he do for me? No, you know what, I better ignore his request for help. This is where sincerity comes in. So you need to examine your actions on a daily basis just to test where you are. Does that make sense? Yeah? So as I said, I'm just trying to expand. So it's not just good that you got a list, oh, you have to do a sincerity sheet, you have to do a prayer sheet. There's a purpose behind that. What is that purpose and why we're doing it? So, sorry, you had a question?
Just a quick question. The sheets, do you use them in conjunction with one another? So for one day, do you work on tongue sheet as well as the namaz sheet?
Yeah, all together.
Right, okay, and then if you make a mistake, you go back to...
Yeah, individually. So let's say
Yep.
If you made a mistake for the tongue sheet, you just go back for day one for the tongue sheet, but you're doing well on the prayer sheet, you continue with that. So simultaneously, you're working on these different sheets. Okay, we've got one more left. What is it? Brother Qasim's got his hand up. Let's see if there's anybody on this side. If
The Muraqabah dua.
that's right, yeah. The Muraqabah dua, we're not going to go into detail now, but inshallah, that in itself is a big subject topic which one of the ustads will cover in detail, in theory, and then in practice, inshallah. So we're going to be able to, fully be explained that so we can understand it. And most importantly, it's going to be a practical session. So when you go away from here, you're going to be able to do the Muraqabah dua on your own at home. And again, it's an amazing sort of tool that you can learn and take away with you, because what you are doing, you are connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and for what purpose? For your benefit. For you to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness, for you to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all the blessings that He has bestowed upon you, for you to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to fulfill your needs and my needs, and for you to ask Allah's help for any problems that we may have. We all have problems, some of you have got businesses have their own problems. Some of you may be married, then you'll have double the problems, right? And the married men are shaking their heads saying, yeah, that's right. So everybody's got problems. There's nobody here who does not have problems. The only people who don't have problems who are buried 6 foot under in the graves. So, this is an amazing tool. There'll be, as part of the Muraqabah dua, you are also asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance on anything that you need guidance on. Again, back to business, any marital issues, any social problems, health problems, anything you want. Honestly, we have such a great divine entity that we can connect to. But many of us, like myself, are very heedless and very negligent of that relationship. We're so busy building relationships with people on the earth that we sometimes forget the real source of power. So these 5 things have been covered very, very well. We'll be repeating them again and again and again to make sure that they are entrenched into your mind by the time you go home. So you can, without any prompt, you'll remember them. And also you'll be given material to take away with you, which has all that information on there. But it's even better if you remember it yourself as well, because you're not always going to be carrying your book around with you, the book that we will give you as part of the course. Just another couple of more minutes. Any more questions that anybody's got, especially what's been covered so far? Brother Ihtisham? No trick questions, eh?
Okay. Just to clarify from my understanding as well, you mentioned the tongue sheet and there's certain sins on there. So for example, a person forgets and starts singing because he's in the habit of singing songs, and then he realizes, oh, I shouldn't be doing that. Should he still put a cross on that sheet, or should he just ignore it?
So that's exactly the same as a person who is in the habit of swearing. So if they swear because they're in the habit of swearing, should they put a cross on the sheet or just forget it and carry on? Yeah. So in that.
So what I was meaning is he's not intentionally done it. He's forgetfully done it. Is that still count as the same?
Yeah, it'd be good if you put a cross, because that way it'll reinforce in your own mind that this is a sin and you should be more conscious so you don't do it. It's like swearing, singing automatically, subconsciously, because it's a habit. Many people, as you know, out there swear without even realizing it. Some people add a swear at the beginning of every sentence. They just do it automatically. So until they don't, take stock of that particular habit and put a cross, they're not going to change that habit. Any other questions? Or I'll take you understood everything? Or you're tired? I think it's... Oh, sorry, you had a question, Brother Qasim.
Do you know the prayer sheet, when you're taking that, is that for if you're Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with me, watching me, hearing me?
Yes.
Is that for that?
Every posture.
Every posture?
Yeah.
And what about if you're doing, because there was another prayer sheet before that, wasn't there, 5 times a day in Jamaat? And then you tick that, and then you do that one, or is it not?
For this purpose, for this one, it's creating that mindset that you're in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Right, so just...
the other one, obviously, is there for people who are trying to get to the masjid to read with Jamaat. So maybe, they need a sheet. Maybe some of us, alhamdulillah, already being able to, join the masjid for the Jamaat. But for this particular exercise, it's for you to develop a strong presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your prayers.
Right, okay.
Yeah. I think it's a good time for a tea break. Inshallah, we'll go upstairs now, have some strong tea to keep us awake, because there's one more session, inshallah, before we're going to be resting. And it'll be a very interesting and interactive session led by one of our very, very experienced Ustad Abdul Rahim.